I hate when my husband works late. Being at home, alone at night, hearing every little creak. It's uncomfortable. I thought I was just being paranoid. Then my girlfriend said she felt the same way when her husband travels. Until they had what she calls their Vivint talk. Vivint, my friend calls it the best home security system out there. It's super easy to use and fit right into our budget. And I love my video cameras. I can see what's going on in and around my home right from my computer or smartphone. It's actually kind of funny. I told my husband, if you're going to be traveling or working late, I'm getting Vivint. And it's made all the difference.
Call now. Not only is installation free, you'll get up to $1,500 worth of Vivint security cameras and equipment today at no charge. Seriously, $1,500. Just pay as little as $99 for activation. Call 877-776-3430. 877-776-3430. 877-776-3430. Restrictions apply. 48 or 60-month agreement and minimum $49.99 per month required. Not available in Louisiana. See Vivint.com for license numbers.
Blog Talk Radio.
Are investigating the disappearance of an Alabama high school student. Police say she was last seen outside a downtown nightclub. The search is continuing. In the summer of 2005, Natalee Holloway's name was everywhere. What happened to Natalee Holloway? But the 17-year-old herself was nowhere to be found. Where she went and what happened to her has been a mystery that has haunted her family, friends, and investigators for years. Search for Natalee stretched across the island of Aruba. Back in May 2005, a straight-A student, Natalee celebrated graduating from high school with a class trip to Aruba. The Mountford students had been there the previous 2 years, even my stepson. There were going to be 150-plus classmates. So we felt like, there's safety in numbers. On May 29th, the night before they were due to fly home, Natalee and her friends went to the casino at their hotel where they met a 17-year-old Dutch student named Joran Vandersloot. I just remember seeing him and wondering what he was doing, hanging out with my friends. He just looked like an average, normal high school guy. Later that night, Vandersloot joined them at the popular night spot Carlos and Charlie. At the end of the evening, Natalee was seen getting into a car with Vandersloot and his two friends, brothers Deepak and Satish Kalpo. It was the last time her friends ever saw her. Less than 12 hours after her daughter was reported missing, Natalee's mother, Beth Holloway Twitty, was in Aruba. I'm not leaving Aruba without her. Vandersloot initially told authorities that he and his two friends had dropped Natalee off at her hotel. I've used the video footage of the interior of the Holiday Inn lobby, of how the tourists can enter the lobby. Vandersloot then claimed he'd left Natalee on the beach, not at the Holiday Inn. On June 9th, he and his friends, brothers Deepak and Satish Kalpo, were arrested on suspicion of being involved in Natalee's disappearance. While investigators tried to build a case against the young men, a massive search was underway in Aruba. It is now that I ask the world to help me. A search that would ultimately prove fruitless. In September 2005, 3 months after they were arrested, Vandersloot and the Kalpo brothers were released. She has been gone for 97 days. That's 93 days too long. And I have painstakingly counted each one. The case seemed stalled, but 2 years later, in November of 2007, the three suspects were arrested again on suspicion of involvement in manslaughter and causing serious bodily harm that caused the death of Natalee Holloway. However, within weeks of their arrest, a judge released all three, saying the evidence was not strong enough to hold them. In February 2008, almost 3 years after Natalee's disappearance, the case caught up with Vandersloot again.
Very latest developments in the Natalee Holloway case. Prosecutors in Aruba have released a statement today about a video brought to their attention by a Dutch crime reporter. He told them that Natalee Holloway died suddenly while they were kissing on the beach and that a friend with a boat threw her body into the sea.
Vandersloot now says
he was lying when he made the comment.
Prosecutors again sought to arrest Johan van der Sloot, but judges denied the request. 9 months later, in November of 2008, van der Sloot told Fox News that he sold Natalee into white slavery. He would later say he was lying. Natalee's parents believe that no matter what van der Sloot says, they likely will never see their daughter alive. While they may not find justice or answers, they do hope to find peace.
Not knowing is the daily torture. It takes a long time to actually come to the realization that you might not get an answer in this lifetime.
And good evening, everybody, and thank you for joining us here tonight for May 14th, 2015. Tonight on the show, we're going to be discussing the Natalee Holloway tragedy, which is now 10 days away from being 10 years to the date. We do have special guests, one person making her debut. First of all, let me introduce guest number one out of Florida. She's a sex crime prosecutor and author, and she's been on the show before. Let's welcome to the panel, ladies and gentlemen, Miss Stacey Honowitz. Good evening, Stacey. How are you?
Hi, Jordan. How are you? Thanks for having me back again.
It's my pleasure anytime. And now, ladies and gentlemen, making her debut to the King Jordan radio show out of California. Ladies and gentlemen, she's an attorney, Miss Robin Sax. Good evening, Robin. How are you?
Good evening, and hello, Stacey.
Hi, Robin. How are you? This is the only time we get to talk is when we're on a show together.
I know. I mean, we could talk dresses and bar mitzvahs and diets and men, but we won't bore you with all that.
So I guess you do know each other, in fact. But in any event, let me start with you, Stacey. Can you believe that this is 10 years? That there's actually 10 days, May 25th. She was disappeared, allegedly, but we all think it's by Johan van der Sloot. But any event, in 10 days, it'll be exactly 10 years to date.
I mean, it really is hard to believe because it was a story that absolutely captured the world. Robin and I used to be on the air quite often during this period of time because every show was handling the coverage of this because there were so many things that were going on in Aruba that people over here just absolutely could not believe. So it is hard to believe it's 10 years, but when you think about some of the really big cases that we've had in the meantime, this is one that really does stand out in everybody's mind. When you bring it up now, everybody at some point can say, oh, I remember what I was thinking about. I remember what I was watching. I remember when they were flashing her picture. I remember when they were showing her parents. It is indeed a tragedy, exactly what you said in the beginning of the show.
No question about it. And, Robin, let me go to you. Can you believe that this is 10 years almost to the date that beautiful girl went missing? The tragedy of Natalee Holloway started 10 years ago.
It's scary when you start counting your life in horrific crime stories and go, I remember that time of my life. That was what was going on when Natalee Holloway went missing. But one of the kind of interesting things that a lot of people don't realize that did happen with the Natalee Holloway case that has been such a change is that was one of the first stories, if not the first major crime story, that was broken through social media and blogs and the like. And it was really the internet sleuthers. And specifically, it was over the folks at Scared Monkeys, Dana Pretzer, Red over there, if you know him. I mean, those people really got the first interviews with the Holloway parents. And it was the first time, and it's kind of a wonderful tribute that we're sitting here on your show utilizing the ever so important avenue of social media and just seeing how you publicize and talk on Facebook. It is that community, this community, your audience, that has made it so that mainstream media cannot turn their eyes to these majorly important stories.
And wouldn't you agree, Robin, that when this was going on 10 years ago and we were on all of those shows, that really it was the only thing people were talking about? It was in the news. It was covered so in-depthly by the cable networks, by the national news, by the networks themselves, that really a day didn't go by when you didn't hear some little tidbit about what was going on over there, when they were arrested, when they were released, when they were rearrested, what the investigators failed to do, where the parents were, who the parents were talking to. I mean, it really did capture everybody's attention.
It did, and with the twists and turns, I mean, the only case that somewhat reminds me of this case, and it kind of still has that same, I mean, you had played that clip of, Jordan played that clip of Beth of maybe never knowing the answer. And the only case that I feel that has that rings very similar is the JonBenet Ramsey case.
Mm-hmm.
It's, you know, a case that we're
parallel.
sitting here, you know, so many years later, we still don't know the answer, although we think we have the answers. We have this beautiful blonde, albeit Natalee a little bit older than JonBenet was, but you have, you know, kind of this divisiveness a little bit in the family between husband and wife, a bit there. It's a very interesting corollary, and maybe Beth is right. Maybe we will never, like in the JonBenet case, never really get the resolution we need.
And Stacey, I want to ask you what the evidence was that you saw and that you noticed. I know you don't know everything to the T, but here in the U.S., is there any doubt in your mind that Joran Vandersloot wouldn't have been charged for the crime of murder for Natalee Holloway, like most people believe? He did it, as well as O.J. Simpson.
Well, we're talking with O.J. Simpson. We went through the trial. We saw what it was doing, and we saw what the results was. And Robin was out there in California when he saw what the reaction was. And certainly people looked at that case and analyzed that case and said, "You've got to be kidding me that he's not guilty or was not found guilty of the crime." Almost to the likes of when Casey Anthony went to trial, and everybody sat there and said, oh my God, she killed her baby, and then the jury walked her on on the major count of murder. But I think with the Aruba case, it was a little bit different because we were not getting all of what was going on, and that was a big concern when we were analyzing the case over here, Robin. If you remember that we weren't getting all of the information. The reporters over there were not even getting the full impact of what was going on. They, if you think back, they switched prosecutors and supervisors and people that were overlooking, and they even brought in a different police force because so much, for lack of a better term, hanky-panky was going on. No one really knew how to conduct the investigation. So from looking at it logically as a prosecutor over here, if the investigation was handled differently than it was over there, I'm sure there would have been a way to get this case to the grand jury for the grand jury to decide that he's guilty of her disappearance. But, without a body, it does become difficult. It's doable, but it's difficult because you don't have cause of death and manner of death and things like that. But I think the biggest drawback in all of us seeing what was going on is that we weren't really seeing the full story of what was going on.
Well, and that's exactly if you look at Amanda Knox here, not only that, you have different rules, different laws, different courthouses, different procedures. Corruption seems to be very commonplace over there, so that's kind of a fact of life, is from what it seems. And even yet, today, was it 3 days ago when this new witness comes forward? That, why is it, and how is it, that there was not this no, stone goes unturned approach? I mean, here we like to think that every lead, every piece of evidence, everything is looked at. We're looking at it with the eye, with an open idea as to what the conclusion would be. But, was the investigation in Aruba investigation that was done to only lead to one conclusion versus another?
Yeah, and if you remember, I'm sorry, George, but there was one thing that Robin touched on. She used the word corruption, and that was thrown and tossed around so many times when we were covering this case because, if you recall, his father was tied somehow to the police force out there, and so there was all these.
Wasn't he a judge?
He was a judge.
He was a judge, right? And that's correct. He was a judge, and so people were, of course, insinuating that he had something to do with the fact that this guy's not getting charged, that all of these things were taking place. It just didn't seem kosher, didn't seem legal, just didn't seem right. And again, we don't know their system. It is very different than ours, and we really didn't get the full story. And I think people felt cheated by that. People felt like we're not going to get to the bottom of it because there was corruption in the investigation of it, in and of itself. So aside from the case taking on a life of its own, the investigation and the corruption then took on a life of its own. Why isn't it being investigated properly? So there were so many twists and turns to this case, and it is hard to believe that it was 10 years ago.
And Robin, being that it was less than a week ago, Mother's Day, try to put yourself, if you can, in Natalee Holloway's mother. I mean, going on the decade and not even knowing the whole truth, just the unknown. I mean, how do you deal with that if you're a parent?
Oh, God, I can't even, that's like the worst question you could ever ask because most difficult, so maybe it's a good question is because it is so difficult. There's no way, I don't think any person who's, without having experienced what Beth Holloway or any mother who's been in the situation could ever even attempt to speculate as to how awful that would have to be. All I can say is as a mom, as a prosecutor, as a person who cares about justice, and as someone who advocates on behalf of victims' rights, you can only hope that when the most horrific, heinous crimes occur, that one, you know what happened, and two, the person or people that are responsible for it are held accountable. Here you have neither. And so I can imagine that, every day is a anniversary of something. Every day, I'm sure there's not a day that goes by in the Holloways' lives that they don't think about it. And then when you have these people that come forward, they better be bringing something that's helpful to the picture, because to bring them the torture and hope that there was some sort of piece of evidence and not, Dave Holloway, I think, is like on a plane on his way to Aruba.
He's there now.
As he does
He's
there. As he does every single time. This is not just a emotional, but it's a costly endeavor, and so I can't even imagine.
And Stacey, I'll ask you the same question. I
there's
know
no
you're a
answer.
prosecutor,
You can ask the question. There's no answer.
I think it would change you. And what do you think of the mother? She was strong. She went there every day and she fought. She must have been under a lot of stress. You can't feel it until you actually go through and live it. I believe you cannot just imagine what somebody's feeling unless you actually go through a death like that. It's not natural to bury your child, as you both know. But in the wake of all that, I think the mother handled herself with intelligence, with pride, and with respect. Your thoughts on the mother?
I don't think there's a person in this world that would disagree with everything you just said. And when you saw her, she was the pillar of strength, and she had to be an advocate. Look, she wasn't getting answers, and she wasn't getting help. And so she had to play investigator, mother, advocate, friend. She really had to do everything, and there wasn't a time that you didn't see her on the air, talking about it, trying to figure it out, trying to get help, trying to, get strength from other people. And so she's a wonderful, tough individual, and it just must be awful. And there's no words. There's nothing to even say.
And
I can't even say anything different.
Both of you. Robin, I know you're a prosecutor, an attorney, but, karma I seem to believe in, because look at O.J., look where he is now. Look at George Zimmerman, he's having a lot of trouble with the law. Look at Jorn van der Sloot. Are you a believer in karma? And if so, wouldn't this be the perfect scenario? Look at him now. 5 years to the date, he kills this other girl, and the father is very popular, allegedly, over there in Peru, and he finds himself there now. Do you believe in karma?
Well, listen, I think you're asking me two questions. One is, do I believe in karma? Yes, I do believe in karma. But Joran van der Sloot in jail right now is not karma. He's a criminal. And he's not there because karma wasn't on his side. Joran van der Sloot was in jail because he can't seem to follow the law. And he can't seem to stop himself from committing crimes. So they tend to go hand in hand. But this isn't just, I think a lot of people like to think of the universe somehow caught up, and therefore, that's why he's in jail now. No, he's not in jail now. He's in jail for murder now because he committed those crimes. And I think that, O.J. Simpson is in jail because he committed those crimes. Is there a nice karmic feeling to it? Sure. I think that the karma for those folks still has yet to come. I hope it's in the form of long, painful, horrible, deaths, if that's, and that's a different karmic reality.
Stacey, let me go to you on that.
Well, I feel the same exact way Robin does, and I'm sure that there's some sense of that feeling that Beth Holloway must feel that, listen, I have no answers on my case, on my daughter's case. I don't know what happened. I know that he was the last person with her. I'm pretty sure he did something to her, and now he's getting what he deserves. So although it's not on her daughter's case, there has to be some sense of, I wouldn't even use the word relief, but maybe she uses the term karma, that he is in prison now for killing that other girl. Certainly she wouldn't wish it upon any other family for it to happen, but if this is where he has to end up, there must be some sense of, like I said, I don't want to say relief, but a feeling of he's at the place where he deserves to be because, as Robin said, he can't follow the law. He's just a straight-out criminal. So, I think that's the only way that you can look at it.
Okay, I'm going to play this short clip with Bill O'Reilly and Geraldo, and on the other side, I'm going to get your take.
Fridays with Geraldo segment tonight in Peru. The killer, Joran van der Sloot, sentenced today to 28 years in prison for murdering yet another woman, 21-year-old Stephanie Flores. Of course, van der Sloot is widely believed to have killed Natalee Holloway on the island of Aruba. Fox News anchor Geraldo Rivera. First of all, I'm hearing that there is a parole system down there where he could get out. He wouldn't have to serve the full 28.
Don't hold your breath. I think that he's going down for the vast majority of the 28-year sentence. I think that we have heard the last of Joran van der Sloot, unless he dies in prison, which I think is also entirely likely.
Entirely likely?
He's an extremely unpopular person. He killed a young woman, Stephanie Flores Ramirez, whose father is very popular, very powerful. He's going to a prison, as I understand it, in the high Andes. It is a harsh place. It is totally fitting and appropriate that Joran van der Sloot, who we believe killed Natalee Holloway, now will see this as the rest of his fate. He'll be 52 years old when he gets out. So justice has been delayed, but justice has not been denied.
So you believe that he could be killed in prison?
I think it is, yes, it is very possible that he'll be killed in prison, but even if he serves the majority of his term, when he gets out, if indeed he survives the experience, which would be harsh and very bitter for him, he still faces the U.S. charges on the wiretap and extortion. So don't look to Joran van der Sloot being a free man anytime.
Both you and I have been in prisons in South America. Okay, I haven't been to Peru, but you have.
I have, right? From Peru to Mexico.
And what people have to understand is, as bad as American prisons are, some of them, and some of them are really bad here, they are country club meds compared to what's down there.
There is no doubt about it. They are medieval.
Right. You have to have money to survive in those criminals. You got to pay the guards and pay the big goons who are the killers who would stab you not to do those things. All right. And van der Sloot doesn't have any money.
He better find the Latino bubba to take care of him.
The bodyguard to take care of him. So
bodyguard or husband.
Karma has caught up.
What goes around has come around, absolutely. Right. Justice has finally arrived on the door of this smug, arrogant, hulking brute who I think physically strangled the life out of two women.
All right.
All right, let me go to Stacey first. Stacey, your opinion on the commentary you just heard.
Well, I think it's basically what we've been saying, just in other terms. But they're right. I mean, when you're a prosecutor, You pretty much know what the system is like over here. We know how harsh it is over here because we witness it. You know, the prison put people in prison all the time, and then I bring people back from prison, so I get to hear the stories about what goes on. But you hear it's double, triple worse over there. And I think we got reports early on that he was having a very difficult time, that he no longer had any kind of connection. I think his father had since passed away since he went to prison, and that was the only connection that he really had, and really didn't have much connections in Peru. So I know it's not easy, and I think that they're 100% right. I think that he's not well liked over there, and it'll be difficult for him to survive. I don't think he'll be paroled. I absolutely don't think he'll be paroled down there. But I think he's not having an easy time of it, and nobody feels bad. That's the thing. Nobody feels bad for him at all.
Robin, your thoughts?
Well, I agree. I think that what Stacey really hit on it is the only potential lifeline for Joran Vandersloot was his father. That was the person that I think personally played an active role in at least throwing smoke screens, having sway with the police when they came to his house, and therefore being able to inhibit parts of the investigation. And I think that if there was any one person in this universe that would give him a potential hope for leniency, would be him. I don't remember for sure, but it sounds familiar that he did pass away. And if, in fact, he did pass away, then he's toast. I don't see any reason other than him to give him, Joran Vandersloot, any sort of advantage in any way whatsoever.
And Stacey, do you believe, and it's probably obvious, that the U.S. and Aruba, media were fascinated with this trial? Well, it wasn't a trial, with this case.
Oh, my God. You mean just inundated with what to do on this case or how to handle this case?
Yeah, in terms of coverage, it was nonstop. I mean,
that's
remember.
What I was saying earlier. It really was kind of gavel to gavel coverage, because it was, in essence, the first, like Robin said, the first case that was brought through social media, and nobody wanted to turn a blind eye to it because it was so interesting. She was this beautiful, all-American. If you recall, they kept showing the picture of her out on the field. She was involved with the band,
right.
And that beautiful picture of her holding the flag, and she was, a good student, and she did well, and she never gave her parents issues. She wasn't a kid that you thought, well, you know what, maybe she's got issues, or she's into drugs, and she's down there partying with somebody. Nobody ever got that impression. She really did fill the bill of an all-American girl whose life was lost while she was down there on a senior trip. So I think the essence of what her stock was over here, what kind of family she came from, coupled with what went on over there and how to handle it, and the amount of times that the boys were picked up and taken to jail, and they gave inconsistent statements, and we kept seeing it over and over again. Yes, I think it was the real time for the press in the States, and probably for Aruba. It was their entrance into a big criminal case that was seen worldwide.
Well, and let's not forget,
Robin?
I think that was one of the greatest legacies that Beth and Dave Holloway leave in terms of the criminal justice system. I don't think it's just because she was beautiful and an amazing family, although I think that really did obviously play well for storytelling and news telling. However, the Holloway family kept their hands to the fire and forced them to keep covering it. They used the media in the best way that anyone could use the media, and helped facilitate the coverage, gave interviews, gave information, utilized tips on social media. I mean, they had the world rallying around them. I mean, if you recall, it was such bad publicity for Aruba that the Aruba tourism suffered as a result.
They called for a boycott.
That's right. And so this was an active systemic plan to be able to utilize the media, keep the coverage, and of course then you do have this great story with this beautiful girl and the school trip and the parents coming out there and all the different search efforts that were made, and then the social media. And the social media, I mean, the crime sleuthers in their bathrobes sitting there piecing together interviews and tapes and snippets of pictures to help work together to try to solve the crime. I mean, they laid the foundation for what exactly NCMEC, National Children Missing Institute, does in terms of utilizing regular people to help find clues and leads to bring about justice. So it was
and Robin, one other thing that's interesting. Go ahead, Jordan. I'm sorry.
Yes, the final question on this story.
I wanted to touch on what Robin was saying, which she's 100% right. And the other, I think another very important thing was that Beth Holloway never sugarcoated anything, ever. She never was afraid to walk on the toes of the media. If she didn't like the way things were covered, if she thought they were hiding things, if she thought that they were BSing her about certain things or holding her back or holding back certain things, she went out there and she said, they're not telling me. I don't know. I want to know. I need to know. So, lots of people are sometimes scared in the media that they don't want to say anything wrong. They want to be politically correct. They get in trouble. She didn't care. She didn't care at all, which was great.
And finally, Stacey, do you think this whole situation puts a big dark cloud on Aruba?
I think it probably has lifted a little bit since then. I mean, people do have a tendency to forget. We know that when we see a big celebrity get in trouble, we're all over it for a couple of years, and then as time passes, people tend to forget. In the throes of it all, when it was all going on, there was a huge pushback not to travel to Aruba. Petitions signed and people saying we're not going, we're going to boycott, we're not going to go. You don't see it as much now because it's not in the news. And the 10-year anniversary is coming up, so we're going to hear a lot about it within in the next month. But I think things have changed dramatically. I think there probably was a time when people weren't traveling there as much when this was going on. I don't know the statistics. I don't know if that's true, but there was a worldwide boycott not to go to Aruba because of what was going on, of how they handled it.
And finally, you, Robin, is there a dark cloud on Aruba? The way they handled the situation?
I think that there's a cloud. I agree absolutely with what Stacey says in terms of people have short memories. I mean, it was funny. I got a thing in my email box today for the Pantages Theater that Woody Allen was going to be playing, and I said, I'm not going to see that. But then but I actually paused, okay, and I absolutely 100% believe all the allegations against him. So now I'm someone who likes to travel, and when I sit there and I think of and I do these Google searches of best places, best beaches, or whatever, Aruba often comes up, and for me, I'm never going to Aruba. But that's because I live on the West Coast, and I've got Mexico and Hawaii, and why would I go that far?
And finally, Stacey, you have your two books that you have done for what is it now, 2 years since those books came out?
Yeah, they've been out for a while now, actually. I'm trying to get some movement on them, so I appreciate you bringing them up. It's My Privates Are Private, Ingenious to the Penis, Don't Touch. And certainly we think it's important now to talk about them. It's always important to talk about them. And parents always think, well, school's over and nothing's going to happen and everything's going to be okay and I'm not going to have a teacher touch my kid because we have all the teacher cases coming out. But listen, the kids are getting ready for summer. They're getting ready for camp.
Does it surprise you anymore?
Yeah, no, does it surprise you? I said it's become the Match.com for people to, start teachers. I mean, we have such a slew of cases really that have come in. It's despicable.
Especially women teachers. It's really
that's
crazy.
What I'm talking about. It seems as though they're having a difficult time on all the other sites, so I guess maybe they get their teaching degrees. But listen, parents, it's important for those of you that are listening. Your kids are going to camp. Your kids are always around adults.
Yes.
It could be people that you know. Make sure you talk to them. Let them know what their private parts are and let them know nobody's allowed to touch them. And if they do, please make sure to tell. And that's what the books really represent.
And Robin, you have a wonderful website. What's the exact website? I glanced through it. There's a lot of good stuff on there.
I'm at robinsax.com, and I totally echo everything that Stacey says in terms of use any opportunity that I can get a piece of a sound and a microphone in front of me where someone will let me say anything. I absolutely keep I echo Stacey's message, and really the key message is for kids and parents is to not just tell, but tell and tell and tell until someone does something.
Mhm.
No, I totally agree with both of you, and I appreciate your justice, your ways on wanting justice for all, Stacey, with these 6 crimes book, and hopefully you helped a percentage of the world with all your rallying and justice. So kudos to you.
Well, Robin and I learned. Robin was an ex-sex crimes prosecutor. We can't save the world. We can try. We always have that feeling you become a prosecutor. I'm going to save somebody, but if it helps one person, it's relevant.
Absolutely. It's been a great show. I want to thank Robin for making her debut on this audio podcast. Thank you so much. You're welcome here anytime. And, of course, Stacey's a regular. And Stacey, thank you so much. It's good to bring Natalee Holloway just back for a little bit. Maybe it'll get somewhere, and hopefully the poor mother will have some kind of something. So thank you.
Okay,
thank you.
Thank you, George.
Okay.
Robin, great talking to you. Talk to you soon.
Okay, well, I'll talk to you soon. Bye.
Okay, babe. Take care.
Absolutely. Good night, everybody. And I want to give a special shout-out to Madeline and Maddie. Thank you for all the help that you have done. Let me tell you, folks, and you amazing stuff that you have done, Madeline, on the Facebook. Mad props to you. Also, next week we have Aphrodite Jones. The week after that we have who do we have? I'm trying to think of Ann Bremner. The following week we have no, we don't. We haven't booked the following week, but June 13th we have a special Michael Jackson 10-year anniversary of being not guilty, with special guest Tom Mesereau, with special guest we got 2 bodyguards from Michael Jackson, Mike Garcia, Kerry Anderson. We have William Wagner, who is who covered the case. We have, we might have Aphrodite Jones. Not sure. Geraldine Hughes will be on the show, and that's that. And all you sports lovers, Cleveland has defeated. And moving on to the Eastern Conference Finals, as I say, 84-64, LeBron James, just 1 series away from getting his next title, possibly. Okay, everybody, we will speak to you soon, and let's play some audio of the mysterious case of Natalee Holloway when she went on Oprah. Here's a quick piece of that, and then we'll wish you good night.
Natalee's mother, Beth, is here, and she hasn't spoken publicly since this latest development. What did that feel like when you heard case is closed? Case being your daughter, it's closed.
It's been such an emotional roller coaster from the beginning that when I heard the news that her case was being closed, I can't tell you if that hurt worse than the day they released the suspects in July of 2005. I mean, I think we've had so much hurt on this journey that it's almost as if you just have to keep yourself prepared for blows because they seem to come one after the other. And always the final one, of course, when we're thinking of it in the finality, and of course it's a lot more painful than the others, but it's just been such a, and I hate to call it, the journey has been, it's just an endless marathon, and that we've just had to really try to put the brakes on and just pace ourselves.
So Yoran had said at one time that he welcomed an opportunity to sit down and talk with you.
Right.
Yeah. Would you do that?
I think the only way that could be productive is if he were Even if you were hooked up to a polygraph machine, yes. Because we really want to get the truth.
What do you believe happened to Natalee?
Well, we've been really careful and trying not to speculate too much. But when I go back to the facts, and the facts are these are the last 3 men that were known to be seen with Natalee alive. And we do know the condition that she was in when she got into the car. And we know the conduct they engaged in with her. And after that, we have different stories of what they gave to interrogators to explain what they did with her that night.
Do you hold out any hope that she'll be found or that she's alive someplace?
Well,
is there a part of you that holds on to that?
Well, and I have to be really careful because I describe that as a fantasy hope. And whether that's 1% chance out of 100. So I don't let myself go there too much because I don't think that's really healthy for your spirit.
Right.
You know, but it is something I fantasize about. And of course we don't have her body, so I have to be really careful about that 1% and that fantasy hope.
Her daughter vanished.